name of these buyut is masjid. Masjid in Arabic, إِنَّمَا يَعْمُرُ مَسَاجِدَ اللَّهِ مَنْ آمَنَ بِاللَّهِ وَالْيَوْمِ الْآخِرِ. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says that those who do imarat al-ard, those who do imarat al-masajid, that fill the masajid up, are people that believe in Allah and the last day. They have a sense of understanding of whose they belong to and where they're going. Who we belong to, not the corporation, not your employee. That's why if somebody says, I can't go to Jummah, why? Because I'll lose my job. That's where they've set their priorities. They put their priority with their job. That's where their priority is. And that's fine. You made a choice. You made a choice to come to Jummah today. Other people made a choice to stay behind their computer terminal and be working. And they're Muslims. And they say, oh, I'm worried. It's a difficult situation. The employment, the job, I can't. There's people, I guarantee you, that were going to Jummah and now they're not going to Jummah. Because they don't want to put themselves in a situation where maybe their employer will think about firing them before they fire other people. Anxiety about provision, even though provision is guaranteed from the cradle to the grave. Everything that was written for you, you will get. Nothing is going to miss you. The Prophet ﷺ said, لَنْ يَمُوتَ ابْنُ آدَمْ حَتَّى يَسْتَوْفِيَ رِزْقَهُ فَأَجْمِلُوا فِي الطَّلَبِ. None of you will die until you completely finish all of your provision, so seek in the best of ways for your provision. Don't steal, don't cheat, don't lose your religion based on dunya. Imam Malik was asked, who are the biggest losers? And he said, those who lose the next world in pursuit of this world. He said, are there bigger losers than those people? He said, yes. Those who lose the next world because of the material goods of others in this world. So in other words, they're just watching people and wishing they had what they had. They're not even getting what other people have. They're just watching them. Lifestyles of the rich and famous. So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says that those who establish and occupy the houses of God are people who believe in Allah and the last day, and establish the prayer, and pay the zakat, and don't fear anyone but God. They only fear God. They don't fear losing their job. They don't fear this, that, or the other. They don't fear Tom or Dick or Harry. They only fear Allah. Those are the people that establish the houses of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So the house, Allah has called us to a house in this world in order to prepare for a house in the next world. You build your house. مَنْ بَنَى لِي بَيْتًا فِي الدُّنْيَا مَنْ بَنَى لِلَّهِ بَيْتًا فِي الدُّنْيَا بَنَى اللَّهُ لَهُ بَيْتًا فِي الْجَنَّةِ. If you build a house for God in this world, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will build a house for you in the next world. This is a hadith of the Prophet ﷺ. What is the masjid? The masjid is the place of sujood. What is sujood? It's a state of abject humility before Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, or before a creature. That's why people used to do sujood. In the old days when they went into the king, they would go into prostration. There's people that still prostrate to people, wallahi, and they can do it in other ways than just the physical prostration. Right? So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, when He told Adam, "Ushjudu li Adama fasajadu illa Iblis." فَسَجَدُوا إِلَّا إِبْلِيسَ لَمْ يَكُنْ مِنَ السَّاجِدِينَ. Iblis wasn't from the sajideen. Why? مَا مَنَعَكَ قَالَ مَا مَنَعَكَ أَلَّا تَسْجُدَ إِذْ أَمَرْتُكَ. What's wrong that you don't make sujood when I told you to make sujood? قَالَ أَنَا خَيْرٌ مِنْهُ. I'm better than him. خَلَقْتَنِي مِنْ نَارٍ وَخَلَقْتَهُ مِنْ طِينٍ. He's using logic. You created me from fire and air, and you created him from mud and water. I'm better than him. Why should I do sujood to him? So what stopped him from doing sujood? Arrogance, takabbur. Allah said, in fact, get out, because there's no room for kibr in my presence. What does Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala say? He says, make sajda and draw near to God. You come into the presence of God in sajda because it's total humility before Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. What is humility in English? Tawadu in Arabic. In English it comes from a Latin word, humus. Humus is earth. Humility is knowing that you are from dust. Humility is knowing your origin. So Allah called people to sujood in this world. Now in the Yawm al-Qiyamah, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, يَوْمَ يُكْشَفُ عَنْ سَاقٍ. On that day when this momentous affair, when all of humanity is brought before Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, وَيُدْعُونَ إِلَى السُّجُودِ. And they're called to make sajda. فَلَا يَسْتَطِيعُونَ. They're not able to make sajda. خَاشِعَةً أَبْصَارُهُمْ. Their eyes are completely in a state of downcast and utter terror. خَاشِعَةً أَبْصَارُهُمْ تَرْحَقُهُمْ ذِلَّةً. They're in a total state of humiliation, not humility. Humiliation, because there's a difference between humility and humiliation. If you do not humble yourself before Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, Allah will humiliate you before His creation. And they're related. Humility, even in English, they're related. Humility and humiliation. Dhalil in Arabic means humiliated, but it also means tractable. Like a camel that's dhalil is one that's easy to ride. You see, that's why humiliated people are people that you can just do whatever you want with them, because they have no dignity. They've lost their dignity. On Yawm al-Qiyamah, that's what happens to the arrogant people here. They lose their dignity. What happens to the people of humility here? They're elevated and they're given izzah and dignity before Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. That's the difference. So you choose what you're going to do here. You choose. You decide who you want to be with. But Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, وَقَدْ كَانُوا يُدْعُونَ إِلَى السُّجُودِ وَهُمْ سَالِمُونَ. They were called to sujood when they were well, when they could do it, when they were salimun. They had everything they needed. And Allah said, Ushjudu. Make sajda before me. 5 times a day, 34 times if you just do the fard, you're going to go into a state of sajda before Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and draw near to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. But if you ignore that command of coming to the masajid, the place of sujood, that's masjid, is ismu makan in Arabic. It's the place that you do something. It is the place that you make sujood. The place of the masajid are places of humility before Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. It's forgetting about your position in dunya. You might be a big engineer. They might call you chief. They might call you high names wherever you are. They might say yes sir, no sir. You could be out there. There's people in here that are in those positions. You're the big doctor, best doctor. What do you think we should do, doctor? The nurse says. You're making the decisions. But when you enter that door, you're nothing. You stand next to the street sweeper. You stand next to the homeless. You stand next to the most poor people in the community. That's the masjid. It's a place where nobody knows who's chief and who's not. Because this is the place where Allah knows what's in the hearts. Allah knows what's in your heart. I don't know what's in your heart. I don't know who's arrogant here. I don't know who's filled with their nafs and their ego. I don't know that. Only Allah knows. That's what this place is about. It's about humility. And that's why when you enter that door, you enter with humility. If you think you can come in here and become arrogant, wallahi, Allah will humiliate you. This is the place of humility. This is the place to learn humility. This is the place to cultivate humility in your heart so that you can go out in the world in a state of humility. That's what these places are about. Now, I'm just going to end on saying one thing. The Muslims in this country are asleep. There's a deep sleep. We could almost say it's a state of a coma. Because the thing about coma, when I used to work in a critical care unit, and I had comatose patients, The way we used to test them was put needles in them. You poke them, and you'd see if you get some kind of reaction, because if somebody's in a deep coma, there's no reaction. All right? You check their pupils, pupil dilation, these things. When you're in a deep sleep, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala throws things into your life to wake you up. If you don't respond to those, they just get worse. They get worse and worse. The best thing that it can happen to Muslims is tribulation. Really. Muslims after 9/11, they suddenly organizing, thinking about where they're going, what they should be doing, and then now things how, Obama's in, everything's better, no more orange suits, they're going to shut down Guantanamo. Muslims go back to sleep. See? But there's a benefit in tribulation. But I'll tell you, this is a tribulation. If you don't think this is a tribulation, you don't understand what's going on in this country. We have Muslims all over this country. They're increasing exponentially. We have large families, 3 to 7 children. Muslims aren't like people now that have 1 child maybe or no children. They still have 3 to 7 children. I have 5 children. That's happening all over this country. We're not thinking about where we're going institutionally. You can build masjids, you can rent places to pray, but think about this phenomenon, because this is being replicated all over this country. And if we don't seriously start thinking as a community about where we're going, about what we're really supposed to be doing here, is this really about just getting the American dream, having your home, getting your Lexus, driving to your work every day, going home, and then maybe Fajr and Isha, if you're a devout, pious person, that's all it is? حَاسِبَ النَّاسِ أَنْ يُتْرَكُوا أَنْ يَقُولُوا آمَنَّا وَهُمْ لَا يُفْتَنُونَ. People think they can say, I believe, and they're not going to be tested. Because if you think that's what this is about, you're in the wrong religion, and you're on the wrong planet.